How long is it going to take inflation to work its way out of the economy? We're going to hear towards the end of the video from Poloz. He's the former head of the Bank of Canada, and he's going to provide some insight as to how many months it's going to take. Keyword there, months. And we're going to learn a little bit about what price pressures are important and which ones are not. But first, we're going to take a look at the most recent CPI report to take a look at what's happening in the economy right now. But if this is your first time here, my name's Nick. Welcome to Ways to Wealth. Before we get into the video, huge favor, huge ask. If you learn something new or you get some value out of the video, hit that like button for me. I definitely appreciate that. And if you haven't already, please consider hitting that subscribe button and turning that notification bell on. And make sure you come back every single Sunday if you like content like this. So let's start off by looking at the CPI report, and we can see inflation grew at 6.9% from a year ago, and core measures have little change. What does that mean? It means that we're not going higher, and we've kind of almost hit that peak and coming on the way down, which is definitely good news for a lot of people, if not everybody. We're gonna see what areas of inflation are definitely, still on the uptrend, and we can see here the first one is gasoline. So oil, gasoline prices are still relatively high. Although in the past report, we did see those price pressures start to fall, while oil has gone up again since then. And we've also seen that the mortgage interest costs are going higher. So now people are starting to feel that in the mortgage rates, whether they're variable and they've gone up, or they've had to re-sign their fixed mortgage, especially with interest rates staying high. This will be an area in which could lead inflation to stay higher for longer. An area in which we've seen actually inflation fall off, which is probably a great sign for a lot of Canadians, is food. So food inflation saw its first decline in 6 months, and it's still elevated about 10.1% above a year ago, but on its downtrend, especially for meats and fruits. And this is a great sign for Canadians as it is. So let's take a look and move on towards Poloz. If you're not familiar with him, he was the predecessor to Tiff Macklem, who is the head of the Bank of Canada. And we're going to learn a little bit about what he has to say about inflation. So Poloz says here that the persistence of the above target inflation as measured by the CPI index was always going to be determined by dramatic price increases in energy and a few other important items in Statistic Canada's price basket. So we're going to focus on the gasoline portion for this topic here. And we know that energy prices have been the main culprit as to where we're sitting at in inflation today, because gasoline and oil are so important in other parts of the economy. It's in how we manufacture food, it's in transportation, and that's how these goods move throughout the world. It has a lot of importance in the economy. And we can see here that gasoline prices, the main driver behind October's headline inflation of 6.9%, are a good example. Prices surged 17.8% in October from a year ago, compared with an increase of 13.2% in September. And that feeds through all other sorts of prices like we just talked about, especially transportation costs. But what's interesting about this is that Poloz doesn't see oil or gasoline as being something that will be persistent for a very long time, and actually believes that higher prices in this commodity are transitory. So let's read a little bit more about that, uncover what he's talking about there. So he doesn't see what's happening in the oil markets as inflation per se. He describes it as just a higher price. And this higher price will eventually offset inflationary pressures by making goods and services too expensive and killing demand. So we've touched on demand destruction before. I'll link that video above. And basically what we're doing is, with the higher interest rates and with inflation, we should eventually put the economy into what is essentially a recession. And from there, when the economy is in a recession, we'll naturally kill off these price pressures that we're seeing. I know it sounds cute, but that's exactly what I mean, because it can't be perpetually rising. because demand destruction will kick in and it'll fall. So commodities are almost never a source of inflation, and they're a source of a higher price, and they're usually input so that they can take a long time to get processed through the system. So this demand destruction will eventually kill inflation, but the biggest question right now is by just how long? How long is it going to take? So what Steven has to say here is because oil has taken around 6 to 9 months to double since the end of 2021, it will take some time for elevated prices to cool off. And you know what he's estimating right here is that the shortest expected time span in this case will be 21 months. So we still have a long time to deal with this. This is something that's not going away anytime soon. But the important message here is that it will end in just a matter of time. And it's just a matter of time before these interest rate increases take effect into the economy. And when people really start to feel the pain that they stop spending and creating this sense of demand. Let me know down below what your thoughts are. Do you think that we'll see inflation for a longer period of time, much like we saw in the 70s and 80s? Or will we start to see these things flush itself out quicker, sooner rather than later? I mean, is definitely the hope, but if you're still here with me, I appreciate all of your support. Make sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I hope you all have a great week in the markets. Happy trading.